Hey there, quick recap. Really awesome class last night. This is getting into the really fun parts about game audio, in my opinion. Just working with, you've done the sound stuff, now you're doing the music and you're seeing the production and seeing how you can make music behave in various ways. So we talked about linear music in chords and how to set that up, and fading out a loop and going to the stinger. We talked about how to have an intro loop and then an outro of your music in chords. I want you to keep working on your tracks, your tiers. And I showed you, and I can share again, how I divided up the tiers for that pirate music, the Blackbeard music, where I had the tier 1, and it had a mixture of things. So it wasn't just one element, it was a combination. And then tier 2 was a different combination of things that embellish or added on to enhance tier 1, and same for tier 3. And so the goal, hopefully, is you can make a tier 1, a bass track, that still creates a mood, but it doesn't have everything in it. What you want to avoid is a tier 1 that is so sparse that it doesn't even feel like music. The strut music that I sent was an example, and you just have a drum beat, and that works for a very small tech demo like we're doing right now. But for an actual game experience, it probably wouldn't work, because hearing a drum beat for too long gets kind of boring. No offense to drum beats. It gets kind of repetitive. And so if you had even just drums and a little bit of bass going on, that might be enough to have a bit more interest. And then in tier 2, you have some other accompanying instruments and maybe a hint of a little bit of melody. And then tier 3 could be a bit more of the harmonic elements there and the full melody happening, and perhaps even a counter melody. So experiment. The best way to do it is how I did it in the video. I'll actually just bring this up real quick. This is the 4 tiers. Here's tier 1. Another quick note here about composition and arrangement is that doom, 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 doom pattern does not persist the whole loop. And you can see where it changes, comes back in. It's going back and forth between different cadences of drums. Breaking that up can be very, very useful. And I go here again, it comes back. So things are evolving. It's not huge sweeping changes, but it is evolving. Try and work that into your score as well. And then for the second one, I'm going to fast forward a little bit. So things are coming out, the hurdy-gurdy is the beginning, and then it goes away during the more percussive, active brass parts. And there's a lot more chordal a lot more chordal movement happening there. And then in tier 3, as the chords get more active, the percussion gets more active. If I backtrack a little bit. Remember, it's hinting at the melody a little bit. And then finally, tier 4 is your highest tier with most of the melodic content. All together right there. And that's the turnaround. Remember, the goal is 60 seconds. So some of you, and this is a little bit longer than 60 seconds, but some of you have quite a bit more writing to do. So make sure that happens. This last little bit I want to show is the end of tier 1. Percussion goes out. So that was a choice I made right there. You could do something like that too. It doesn't look like it's just silent. It's still doing something, but it's very different at the turnaround than the rest of the cue. So that's one thing to work on. The other thing is you can just recap. You can go through the PDF version of the presentation yesterday, but it's going to be a whole lot of working with your MIDI, working with continuous controller, CC data. So your modulation, your expression. If you don't know what your virtual instruments, your MIDI instruments, what they support and what they do support, then do some research on that and find out. They kind of run the gamut. It's not standardized, but at the very least, a lot of them will cover velocity. If you have really, really low tier quality MIDI samples, I hate to say it that way, it sounds like a diss, then it might be a situation where it might not even cover velocity. It might just be just one sound. And in that case, you're going to have to be creative with your volume automation to get some of that. But I would highly recommend you check out some stuff. There's some really, really good sample libraries. I will show you some more of those. I'll give some ideas for you in an email. And you can check those out, because if you're working with low quality samples, it makes the job much harder. If you at least have some round robins, some variations, some articulations that you can play around with, if you have some velocities that you can mess around with, maybe changing in vibrato, all those things we talked about last night in the class, it helps make the music more realistic. I would do some research on that and see, don't settle for just working with the base, bare bones version of MIDI instruments, because they're harder to make sound good. All right, I kind of rambled there and went a little bit longer than I thought I was going to, but great class last night. I'm excited to see what you do with the interactive music. Again, remember, make sure they're set to play when silent, so it syncs, and also make sure that your duration is exactly precise for all of your tiers that you're putting into the game. And then finally, make sure that your tempo and your time signature is matching the project. Those are the kind of the gold standards that are going to help you have it work. All right, see you later. Bye.